What's up everybody, I'm Mike Wilson with Any Hour Services, and in this video I'm going to show you how to choose and install under cabinet LED strip lights for a kitchen we just remodeled. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. Let's go change and get this done. Come on. Now there are a lot of options to consider when choosing the LED strip lights you want to use. You're going to want to spend some time researching this before you pull the trigger and buy everything. For instance, do you want to control the lights from a switch on the wall? Do you want to dim the lights? Do you want the ability to change the colors, or are you okay with just straight white? If you're going to use white, what temperature is the light going to use? How are you going to mount the lights? Are you using a 12 volt or a 24 volt system? What length do you need? How many LEDs per meter, or how bright do you want them to be? Do you need them to be waterproof? Are you comfortable soldering the connections yourself? It can be overwhelming, but if you make it through the research phase and get to the installation, it can be exciting. I'm going to show you what I am doing to install the LED strip lights in my kitchen. I have 4 sections that I want to control with one dimmer switch. Since my walls were exposed before the new cabinets went in, I was able to pre-run my wire to the basement. I just needed to know where the cabinets were going to go, so I knew where to leave the wire hanging out from the wall. I didn't need fancy colors, so I went with all white light. The other lights in my house are 4,000 Kelvin. I wanted 60 LEDs per meter. It comes in a roll and you have to cut it to length and solder the connections. When I measured how much length I needed, it came to just under 16 feet. I ran a stranded 18 gauge 2-conductor wire from each location down to the basement. I also bought a dimmable 12 volt 45 watt driver to power the lights. First thing I'm going to do is actually hook up my power supply down in the basement and make sure that I'm getting the right voltage and that my wires aren't damaged. Always check that the power is off to anything that you're going to be working on. Make sure all the wires will reach to where you're going to be installing the transformer. Once I mounted the transformer, I removed the cover to expose where the connections are going to be made on the supply side. Since I won't be using the plug that came with the transformer, I'm going to remove that to make room for the wires running from my switch leg. I like to secure the electrical wires and then remove any excess that I'm not going to need. Next, you want to strip the conductors and then place them underneath the terminals. Tighten down the connections, and then you can replace the cover. Next, you want to secure the low voltage wires. Make sure you know where you're going to route them and then trim off any excess that you have. So I don't have too many wires under one terminal, I'm going to make a pigtail of the same color conductors. Strip your conductors and then make sure you get an extra wire that's actually going to be the pigtail. Group the blacks together and the reds together. Twist the conductors and then secure with a wire nut. Now remove the cover to expose the connections on the load side of the transformer. Be sure to remember which color you're hooking up to the positive and to the negative so that you can keep it straight when it's time to solder the wires to your LED strips. I like to hook mine up like a car battery, red to positive, black to negative. Put the cover back on and then we'll go upstairs to check the voltage to make sure the wires aren't damaged. This transformer is stepping the voltage down from 120 down to 12, so when I test the conductors I should get 12 volts. Next, I test the switch to make sure when I turn it on, it supplies voltage. When I turn it off, it cuts it off. I wanted the install to have a nice, clean, professional look, so I ordered these aluminum channels to be able to mount the LED strips on. If you're going to do something like this on your project, the first thing you need to do is cut the mounts to length. Measure, mark, and cut. If there's any sharp edges, you can use a file to file those down. Now this channel came with some mounting brackets that I screw into the base of the cabinet. To make sure you don't drill through the bottom of your cabinet, put a piece of tape on your drill bit so that your pilot hole is the proper depth. Then you just snap the channel into place. Now it's time to solder. This is probably the most overwhelming part of the project if you've never soldered before. The first thing you want to do is cut your LED strips to length. Your strip of lights will have places where you can make cuts that won't damage the LEDs but allow you to cut to whatever length you need. I'm going to start by removing the outer sheath to these stranded wires. My plan is to put a white heat shrink tubing over the wires to try and get as uniform a finish as I can get. If you've never soldered before, having a second set of hands can help. I like to strip the conductors, twist the strands, and solder the ends first. I also recommend that you watch some videos on YouTube or practice soldering before you actually do the final soldering on your project. Again, the heat shrink tubing that I'm adding is just so that I can get a clean look for the finish. And don't forget to pay attention to making sure the red wire goes to the positive and the black wire goes to the negative. Your LED strip light should be labeled with a plus and minus so that you can make sure you hook it up properly. By adding solder to the strip lights and the wire first, when you put them together, it makes it easier to solder that connection. After I've soldered the connections, I go ahead and I test the light to make sure that it comes on and there's no problems, because if there is a problem, it's going to be easier to resolder the connections while it's not stuck up under the cabinet. I have another piece of heat shrink tubing that's a little bit larger that I can slide over the LED strip light and cover the connections that I just made. Peel the back off the LED strip and adhere it to the aluminum mounting channel. Repeat this process for all of your sections of light. Here's a couple more tips for you when you're doing your project. Number one, always inspect your wires for damage. As frustrating as it is, cut wires are just something that happens sometimes. In my installation, the cabinet guys cut these wires, so I had to repair them. This is a technique to give you a strong soldered connection between the stranded wires. Expose some extra conductor, twist them, make a hook, and then latch them together. Twist again, and add solder. I placed some heat shrink tubing over the conductors so that they didn't touch and short out. Then I just did the process that I showed you on all of the other sections. Now, if you have a corner cabinet, you can make short jumper pieces in between the sections of LED strip lights. I also found it easier to solder the individual pieces together on a flat surface so that I only had one piece that I was soldering up at the cabinet. The aluminum channel that I got came with these covers that snap in place. It helps to diffuse the light and added to that clean finish that I was going for. I'm super happy with the way this turned out. LED strip lights are a great addition to a kitchen, but if you're not comfortable doing the types of things you saw me doing in this video, any electrician should be able to install these for you. Let me know down in the comments what you think about LED strip lights. Do you have any installed? Are you thinking about installing some? Either way, I hope you found this video helpful. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you know when we're releasing new videos. Until next time, good luck with your next project. Thanks for watching. See ya.